One of the cruelest weapons the enemy uses against you doesn't look like a spiritual attack at all. It looks like a calendar. It's that sudden, suffocating panic that ambushes you in a quiet moment when you realize how much time has slipped through your fingers. You look at your age. You look at where you thought you would be by now. And then you start doing the math nobody wants to do. The years you spent in the wrong relationship, convincing yourself it would get better. The years you lost to depression so heavy you could barely get out of bed. The years trapped in a job that drained everything out of you while your real purpose waited. The years spent in a waiting room that seemed to have no exit. You add it all up, and the total is terrifying. And right there, in the middle of that arithmetic of regret, the enemy leans in close and whispers the lie he has been saving specifically for this moment. It's too late. You missed your window. You are too far behind to ever catch up. But here's the question that changes everything. What if the enemy is running human mathematics on a supernatural God? What if your timeline isn't broken? What if it is being primed for a divine acceleration so explosive that when it happens, you won't even be able to explain it to people? Because the God you serve doesn't just offer fresh starts. He restores years. Before we go any further, you need to understand what you are actually dealing with. In the book of Joel, God's people weren't just having a bad season. They were staring at the kind of devastation that makes people walk away from everything they believed. A massive locust invasion had swept through their land. And if you know anything about locusts, you know they don't just eat the harvest. They eat the seeds that would produce next year's harvest. They strip the bark off the trees so the roots can't feed. They don't just destroy what's visible. They attack the very foundation of future growth. When locusts are finished with a field, it doesn't look like a setback. It looks like a permanent ending. Maybe that's what your life looks like right now. The enemy didn't just attack your finances. He attacked your confidence in ever rebuilding them. He didn't just damage a relationship. He damaged your ability to trust anyone enough to try again. He didn't just steal a season. He stripped your belief that a new season was even possible. He took you down to the bark, down to the root, and left you standing in the wreckage wondering if growth would ever happen again. But this is exactly where the story turns. Right in the middle of Joel's description of absolute devastation, when the fields were empty and the people were broken, God opens his mouth and says something that defies every law of logic and every limitation of time. Joel 2 verse 25. I will restore to you the years the swarming locust has eaten. Read that again slowly. He didn't say, I will give you new seeds. He didn't say, I will help you start over from scratch. He said he would restore the years, not the crops, the years. Think about what that means. Time is the one currency that every human being on earth is completely powerless to manufacture, rewind, or recover. Once a day is gone, it is gone. There is no technology, no amount of money, no human wisdom that can reach back and reclaim lost time. Scientists have mapped the genome and landed on the moon, and not one of them can give you back a single stolen year. But God can, because He created the clock. He exists entirely outside of time. And when He decides to move on your behalf, He can reach into your past, take what the enemy stole, and force it to produce a harvest in your present that should have taken decades to accumulate. This is not poetry. This is a promise from the only being in the universe who has the authority to make it. Now let me show you something that will completely shatter the lie that you are too late. In the Gospel of Luke, there was a woman who had been bent over, completely unable to straighten herself, for 18 years. 18 years of looking at the ground. 18 years of not being able to lift her face to the sky. 18 years of pain, limitation, and what the world would call a permanent condition. She hadn't missed 1 year. She hadn't missed 5 years. She had missed 18 years of living fully upright in the body God gave her. And then one Sabbath day, she walked into the synagogue. Jesus saw her, not the crowd, not the religious leaders. He saw her specifically, and He called her forward. He didn't make her fill out a form. He didn't ask her to explain her condition or prove she deserved healing. He simply laid his hands on her and said, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." And immediately, not gradually, not eventually, immediately, she straightened up and praised God. 18 years of stolen posture, restored in a single moment. But here is what makes this story shake something loose in your spirit. The religious leaders were furious that Jesus had healed her on the Sabbath. They called it unlawful. And Jesus looked at them and said something that belongs in your mouth today. Should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her? He called her a daughter of Abraham. He reminded everyone in that room that her identity was never defined by her condition. Her 18 years of bondage did not change who she was to God. And when Jesus decided it was time, 18 years of limitation were reversed not in 18 years of recovery, but in a single, sovereign moment of divine restoration. That is the God you are serving today. And here is the kingdom principle behind how he does it. Amos 9 verse 13 says, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes." Do you understand what that means? The harvest is going to come so fast and so abundantly that the person harvesting the crop will literally bump into the person still planting the seeds. The normal sequence of waiting doesn't apply anymore. The usual rules of how long things take get completely suspended. When God restores your years, he will do in 6 months what takes other people 10 years to accomplish. He will place you in rooms you have no resume for. He will bring healing across your path that the world said would take a lifetime. He will accelerate your story so dramatically that people who watched you in the wilderness will look at your life and say, "There is no natural explanation for this." And they will be right. But you have to understand something crucial about the years you think you wasted. God didn't waste a single day of your pain. Think about Moses. He fled Egypt in disgrace. And for 40 years he was invisible, a shepherd in a forgotten wilderness. By every human standard, those 40 years were a catastrophic detour from his destiny. The man who was raised in the palace of Pharaoh was now sleeping in a field with sheep. But when God appeared to him in the burning bush, Moses had something he never possessed in the palace. He had been broken of his pride, refined in his character, and trained in the exact geography where he would one day lead 2 million people to freedom. 40 years felt like waste. They were actually preparation. The enemy wants you to look at your delay and see failure. But God looks at your delay and sees a foundation being built strong enough to hold the weight of what he is about to release. Because here is the truth the enemy doesn't want you to receive. If God had handed you the blessing 5 years ago, your character couldn't have carried it. Your faith was too fragile. Your boundaries were too weak. The weight of that double portion would have crushed you rather than crowned you. God allowed the delay not to punish you, but to protect the blessing by building the person who would receive it. You didn't lose time. You gained something that cannot be purchased at any price. You gained wisdom that only comes from surviving what you survived. You gained discernment that only comes from being wounded by people you trusted. You gained a faith so refined that it no longer flinches at what used to terrify you. And now, the season of acceleration has arrived. Stop mourning time you think you lost. Stop comparing your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20. Stop letting the enemy use the clock as a weapon against you. Because that same God who called a bent-over woman forward after 18 years, who activated Moses after 40 years in the wilderness, is looking directly at you today and calling you forward. Your condition does not define your identity. Your delay does not determine your destiny. And the years the enemy stole are about to be restored with the kind of speed and precision that only God can engineer. The locust years are over. The field is being prepared. The harvest that should have taken decades is coming in a single accelerated season. And when it arrives, it will be so perfectly timed, so specifically designed for every year you mourned, that you will know without a shadow of a doubt that God was counting every single day. He had the receipts the entire time. If this message anchored your spirit today, drop this prayer in the comments right now. Lord, restore my time. Say it as your declaration of faith. Say it as your notice to the enemy that you are done letting him use the calendar against you. Subscribe to Holy Purpose for biblical truth that will carry your faith through every season. Share this with someone who feels like they are too far behind to ever catch up. Your story is not over. You are not too late. You are not too broken. God is about to fast forward your breakthrough, and when He does, the acceleration is going to be absolutely undeniable. The best years of your life are not behind you. They are right in front of you.